Thank you for having me here today. I am constantly traveling because of the nature of my company is very spread out, almost 10,000 people in 56 countries. So I tend to visit them quite a bit. For human resources, a huge challenge for us in terms of the talent that we have to go after, which is data science, machine learning, deep learning, computer visualization, lots of these new skill sets that are traditionally with younger people, right? People that kind of grew up in the digital era, and they're just getting out of college, a lot of them. There's a few that I've met that are older, but not very much of this talent out there. And so as my organization shifts gears and moves into this new digital era, we have to examine ourselves in terms of what do we have to change. And there's quite a significant amount that we have to change. I came into here last April under a new CEO and a new leadership team that was tasked with bringing here out of mapping into something much bigger. And you can see some elements of that strategy. I hired all of my peers, and in the process have had to do a lot of deep dive about what does it mean for HR to support a strategy like this. So what's kind of going on, whenever you're building a strategy for your company, particularly a people strategy, you need to look out the window at some of the trends that are happening. In particular, I talked about that supply-demand issue with talent. We're seeing a complete drop in fertility rates in some pretty significant parts of the world, particularly Japan. In fact, I was sitting around a group of women in my Tokyo office and said, "Why are you guys not having children?" And they said, because we're not really supported. We have to go out of the workforce to raise kids, and we now feel it's important to have a career. And so this is dropping a lot of fertility rates because a lot of these people are not having children. We also have a lot of generations in the workplace. So I don't know about your particular industries, but we have everybody from baby boomers down to Gen Y, or the millennials that are coming into the workforce with very different needs, very different communication styles. And this is creating quite a challenge for us. On the economics, we have some things emerging around cloud service, Internet of Things, and human and machine collaboration. So many of the jobs that exist today are getting transformed. Jobs are going away at a rapid pace, more rapid in the last 60 years. We are seeing the evolution of these jobs go away at an enormous pace from what it used to be. But we're also creating new jobs because human beings don't go away. Their interaction with these machines changes, so the jobs change. We're also getting a new work ecosystem. So I do a lot of speaking on the future of work, and I just wrote a white paper on this that has not been released yet, but it talks about these two trends, the democratization of work. So we have people who are opting out of the workforce to go hang a shingle and be a freelance, be a free agent. And then we also have the technology empowerment in that you can work anywhere in the world from anywhere. So the barrier to entry to be a free agent is very low. So for those of us that are chief HR officers and trying to hang on to talent on the inside, the question becomes, how do we create an environment on the inside where people feel they have choice about the work that they're doing? How do we create a free agent nation inside the company? And I will talk about something that I'm doing to address that. And then this social reconfiguration about what does it mean to be a part of an organization. If you're a freelancer and you come in to do work for a very short period of time, then why does culture matter? What does an organization really mean? What does it look like? These are all the things that we're starting to tackle on the outside. And we can't ignore this. This is a reality. So how are HR organizations having to respond? We're having to have a more modernized agenda. So this is actually from Willis Towers Watson. This is some of the things that people are having to address to modernize their agenda. You can see being more agile and nimble, being able to change, not having things so set in stone in terms of your strategy. Introducing more flexibility into the compensation programs. I don't know about you, but we have a lot more teams cropping up, team-based work, yet our compensation systems don't operate that way. They're very, very much based on an individualized program. So this is something we have to change. We have to be more transparent. I mentioned we have a lot of different age groups in the workforce. I'll tell you, millennials expect a lot more transparency. For Gen Xers, so I'm in the Gen X category, I would never share my compensation with my neighbor at work, ever. Would ever think of that. That's kind of commonplace for young people. They share where they are at any given time. They're tweeting, they're on social networks, they share a lot more. So this presents challenges for us. Leveraging technology to engage employees. So this is the whole social platforms that are cropping up. If people are spending a lot of time on social platforms, what's our social platform inside of the organization to engage people? And then this transition, this one was really fascinating to me in the Willis Towers Watson research, and I'll have, Shakar, you should probably talk about this research when we go to a panel. But one of the things that was really curious for me with Gen Y, or millennials, was this whole sense of job security, because I thought that was the old school. But it's not about job security in the way that we thought, like I need to be employed by this company for 10 years. It's that I need to know that I have relevance over a period of time, that my skills are relevant. So what that means to us is that we need to keep updating skills for people. And we need a way, since people are on their device all the time and they take work with them, that we have ways to reduce their stress. What are the benefits of a digital agenda for HR? Here's some of the hard numbers. And this was taken from a gentleman who started his own firm called TI People Research based in Germany, and he was formerly the head of the corporate executive board in Europe. But he's done a lot of work, and these are the three areas. The consumerization of HR. So the fact that the way that our marketers are marketing to our customers, we're having to switch gears and really think of our employees as consumers of our programs. How are we marketing to them? How are we getting data from what is resonating with them and what is not, and then adjusting our programs to them? So we actually do personas of our different audience of employees and say it's not one size fits all. We need to kind of address that. And we can save a lot of money and create a lot more efficiencies by not doing certain things that we used to do. On the workforce analytics, this is becoming increasingly more important, that we do not look at lagging measures of what happened in the past, because things are moving so fast, what happened in the past doesn't matter as much. But how are we getting insight into predictive analytics? One of the things that Volker Jacobs, who started this firm, will talk about is this social listening capability. When people start to fall off social platforms, is an indication that they are going to attrit. So how are we intervening in advance when we can see someone falling off these platforms such that we don't create a turnover situation and we're able to retain that staff? And then the new organization of work, which I'm personally very devoted to, which is how do we create new ways of working such that we retain people, we're able to move talent around and become more agile and productive. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. So this has implications for me in terms of my people strategy, to tackle these big visions, to think about how to consumerize HR, to make us more productive. This definitely had an impact on my strategy. So one of the things that I embarked on, and I had learned through doing CREATE, I don't know if any of you are familiar with CREATE, but it was a consortium of CHROs who got together through John Boudreau and USC and PwC to look at how we needed to define the future of our profession. And one of the things that light bulbs that went off for me was I need new people in HR to be able to attack something this big. I needed new thinking, and I didn't want people that had to unravel old learning. I just wanted to bring in those new skill sets. And then the last, which is very interesting, is that trend forecaster, the more predictive analytic capability. So in my organization, some new roles that emerged were head of employee experience. So I brought in somebody from Cisco who had led marketing, partner marketing, had a PR background, etc. No experience in HR whatsoever. I brought in 3 engineers and a data scientist who were in my trend forecasting kind of center of excellence. They had only worked in engineering their entire career. Engineers solve problems in different ways. We have a huge problem in HR, too many processes, too complex, too many technology systems. I wanted them to greatly simplify those things. So they're leading operations really for me inside of HR, completely disrupting the way we've typically done things. The other thing is I'm building software in the company that's brand new. It's a talent platform that's nobody has. And so I brought in some folks from product development to actually build that talent platform, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So you see a lot of different skill sets coming into my department. The great news is they've never worked in HR, so they don't have to unravel themselves from any sacred cows. We had to transform ourselves because we were operating at a very old school way of running HR. We were not digitized. We didn't have a strategy for that. We had different roles we had to tackle. So we went through a transformation process. We actually worked with Mike Grove's company, CollabWorks, to do what I call bottoms-up exercise and tops-down exercise of what is the actual work we're doing, what's low-value work, what's high-value work, and how do we transition some of that low-value work to automation, and how do we make sure the people that we have are really doing high-value work. So we did a lot of that, and we created a program management office for the transformation, and we have 5 work streams that we're working against, and we are literally tackling those along the day job. We have that transformation in place. As I mentioned, we took, our highest level business strategy, brought that through the people strategy, and then changed our delivery quite significantly to do that. So I've kind of mentioned some of these already, but we had to significantly change HR. And these became our top 5, I would say, part of our 3-year plan. So how we're going to drive greater talent excellence by getting the right talent in the door. We did not have the right talent. So we are, I don't know if many of you have used Talent Neuron. Anybody familiar with that product? So Talent Neuron actually looks at supply and demand of talent all over the world. So when we looked at data science, we want to know where in the world are data scientists? Where are they getting, traditionally they would get out of certain school programs, et cetera. But where in the world do we find this talent? We looked at it on a continuum of supply, demand, and cost. And we mapped the whole thing. So we can see for data science and analytics, for deep machine learning, where in the world are we getting that talent? And we made that a part of our strategy. We also are tackling something called talent mobility. So how are we in a very global organization moving talent around? How are we creating opportunities for people inside the company so they're not stuck in jobs? Because folks, I believe the future is not about jobs. It's going to be about hiring a certain capability that you need in the company at a given point in time. And as I told you, it's moving so rapidly that if you're always working on I need this for the next 3 years, you're going to be completely out of touch. So how are you upskilling your people in a rapid way, and how are we driving more talent mobility in the company? And that's that software platform that I talked about, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Driving pay competitiveness. So we have a lot more projects going on in the company, and we're not paying people by that project team's results. It's very individual, so we're looking at that quite a bit. Driving that operational efficiency, and we're also in a massive culture transformation. So we came in, established a whole new set of core values. In my career, I've never seen a company adopt core values like this company has adopted. Our program was a 9-month campaign and still running. We have 3 pillars of our people strategy. These are the 3 pillars. We're going to keep this probably for the next 2 years. So how are we creating that world-class pipeline, moving people around? How are we consumerizing HR by making people first, reducing complexity? And how are we creating, in a very global environment, very distributed, one culture? Because culture is still really important. The DNA that you're bringing in the company is really important. And we needed entrepreneurs in our company. We needed people that were going to take high levels of risk and try new things. And that is something you test for as you bring people in, and then you have to reinforce along the way. So here's some of the things that we looked at in terms of our world-class pipeline that we're disrupting. You know, a lot, I told you compensation was very individual, so were rewards. So we are revising our whole reward strategy to be more team-based, badging, social, online, very easy to execute on a global basis. I'm just going to pick a few of these. Employer brand. So another thing we had to look at, and my head of employee experience led the whole effort, is how are we marketing ourselves as a company externally, and how do we take that through all the ways that we reach out to candidates on the outside? So what you'll see there is a lot of our diversity messaging. You'll see a very interactive careers portal. And that was to say we're young, we're hip, you know, come work for us, because a lot of the people that we have to acquire are people that are very young in their career. So we're in that shift in our organization. We have to make sure our employer brand speaks to that. And then talent mobility. So on micro-learning, so one thing that we noted was that given the need to upskill yourself pretty rapidly, no longer can people go to a 4-year university and come back or take the schooling at night. So we now are pushing content to people or certifications that are rapid learning. We are also, in our talent platform, hooking people up in a grassroots fashion with mentors who, somebody says, I want to learn machine learning. People can go on that platform and find other people who are looking for that kind of learning, and they are attaching themselves to each other. So they're actually conversing, pushing articles to each other, white papers, because learning cannot happen in that long continuum. By the time you get the certification, you need something completely different. So those of you that either oversee learning or are, doing learning like you are yourself, you're going to have to look at how do we make it bite-sized, how do we make it on demand, because those skills are needed so rapidly. We can't keep up if we keep trying to send people to 2-year programs, 4-year programs. This is the one near and dear to my heart too, which is about culture, and getting the right DNA into the company. Hiring that head of employee experience was really important. In fact, if I were to change my role, I think Donna Morris at Adobe changed her title to Chief Employee and Customer Experience Officer. That's really what I am. My whole goal is to make sure that I give people back time to do their jobs, time to explore and learn, and the time to do great work. And it's not to justify or validate my organization. And so I think we have to reduce a lot of the complexity and create a culture where people can, engage with each other and honor diversity and perspectives and have a great experience at work. So we have to think of ourselves more like marketing people do. Yeah, so risk-taking, one of the important things about it, I think, is that as you have people taking risks, that you talk about it. You tell the story about how they took a risk, they didn't get fired, they actually got promoted, or they, especially when they fail. So we do a lot of storytelling about when people fail. Because we want them, we didn't call it fail fast, we called it learn fast, because it is about the learning, because fail just has bad connotations with everybody. So a lot of it is telling the story. And we have an innovation enablement function in our company, so people can put forth ideas that then get VC funding. We have a platform that they can put them in, and then they get pushed to a committee and they can get funded. Now, I came in with an idea before all that infrastructure was in place, but now we go to the VC funding panel and we get, so for me, I just got fully funded this year. So I kind of backstepped and went through the process just to be an example. But a lot of it is about telling the story. And there are actually, in most innovative companies, you have to fail or you're not trying to do a lot of really cool things. And for us, we have a lot of failure going on, but it's good. And we tell the story. So mostly it wasn't actually about the financials, although the financials, when I moved to that model, are a part of it. It was more about how do you not tell people that they just have to work more? How can we actually leverage them more efficiently in the work they're doing? Because remember how I said there's a lot of people that probably are doing a lot of low-value work. So there's a lot of skill and capability in one individual that we don't have access to. We know what they're doing today. We can see their resume, but we don't actually know an inventory of all their skills. If we're actually able to break work down enough, they might be able to do that day job in 80% of their time and spend 20% doing something else, and we don't lose anything on either side. So in terms of how we structure the financials of it, if you're working less than 50% time on another project, your original cost center is still paying for you. So it's a commitment from the company to develop people and move them around. And I will tell you, we don't have all the data yet, but I guarantee the productivity, the engagement, everything's going to be so much higher that it will have paid for itself. So I'm going to skip this slide. So here's how we actually, any of you read Lead the Work by John Boudreau? Okay, so you'll see this model in his book. It's how we break down work into projects. Many of you, if you think about it, the work you're doing right now today, there's probably a lot of your work that is project-based. You just don't think about it. It's just a part of my job. But if you actually were to go through this model and try to break it down, there's probably a lot of work that you're doing that is project-based. And we did take it further and say, out of a project, how many services are we requiring? And of those services, what are the skills and capabilities required to do that work? And so that's how we actually offer projects on the talent platform, is we break work down into levels of service, and then we create a master project out of that. So I talked about a modern agenda. When my CEO came on board, we hired Bain. Very expensive, I might add. Very smart, but very expensive. And this was the slide that they put up. And they said, here, we're going to help you with your strategy and build it all the way out to go to market. And they said to me, Kelley, your piece of this is the purple boxes. That's what you got to figure out. Now, typically, that would just mean, okay, talent that we're bringing in the door in our systems and HCM, et cetera. But what I decided to do was to really look at ways of working and change it. And change it into, if we're going to embrace the future of work, how do we change this way of working? Because simply creating a talent supply chain tool is not enough, because we have to change the way we're working. People will not adopt the technology if I just were to embed it. And that's why all that research and work went into this, ways of working. So what do I mean in ways of working? It's the purple stuff. It's the ways of working on culture, leadership behaviors, how decisions get made, and our organizational design. Is it possible to actually have people working on projects in that sort of matrix environment? What does it mean performance management? What does it mean, like, who's your boss in that situation? So a lot of this had to get looked at. Who's making decisions in a project? Is it only the project lead, or is it distributed? So a lot of the rules of engagement we're going to have to change. So we looked at also people, process, and technology. in order to enable it. The technology became the talent platform. How are we going to break down comp rewards, learning, promotions? What does it look like in this new world? And we had to use design thinking, and many of you that, if you were here with me last year, got an overview of how we're applying design thinking to HR. It's taking it from that user's point of view and developing everything out from there. So we had to embark on quite a process to do this. So this is a traditional hierarchy. And that's why all of our systems today in HR work, because it's all based on this, right? Your finances are tied to the highest level individual. We have so many resources, and that's how we work. But what I'm embarking on with my company is totally different, which is to say, let's assume that all these people have different skills and capabilities, and let's move them into project teams. But let's not stop there. Let's continue to allow opportunities for people to move around and to network with each other and get work done. And so this whole idea of, I don't own my 50 people, I get to borrow them for a period of time, but they're owned up here it's the sharing economy at best applied to talent. And it's really hard for people to imagine. But already in the company, we're practicing this with great success. So, talent platform. And if we have time and you're really interested, I'll take you into this further. So, we created a talent platform to eat my own dog food. I got up in front of the senior leader team so it was about 250 people last June, and said, I want to create this. This is my idea, and I need the best and brightest on it in the company. And since I don't have the talent platform today, in order to be able to find you, you're going to need to email me. And I totally empathize with your point of view, but listen, what's really funny about this, and it's going to be hard, is that people think, because it's that scarcity issue, is that by releasing people to able to do some of this work, that they're going to drop balls in my area. What we have found over the last 3 months in this pilot is nobody has dropped any balls on their work. Because you know what you're getting, in truth, is all the discretionary effort that someone brings to bear because they love what they're doing. So while I'm not asking for the above 100%, people are putting in above 100%. They just do. But they're getting something for it at least. It's not because someone's demanding it. They're getting learning and development and exposure, and that is worth something to them. So the exchange is fair. It's a fair exchange. So we have to get leaders, in order to talent share, away from scarcity and into abundance. And it's only going to happen when we share the stories. And they start to see, wow, I didn't lose anything in that equation. And remember, you had to give, but you had the opportunity to get. Just because you give doesn't mean you don't get. And when you talk to them, it's really funny. You talk to the leaders and they go, well, I don't want to give up John because then but you might get someone better than John. Did you realize that? John has some skill that you were utilizing, but what if you were able to get the best guy to work on that? And then, oh, I get people? Wow, I get other people? Didn't think about that. So that's what's really fascinating. And of course, they're super excited to get resources, but they can't be in the bartering if they're not in here. So they want to get in here. So here's an example of the Talent Platform First Release project. And I'm sorry that it's so hard to see. But you can see how we broke the project down into services. Systems engineering, not systems engineer. Systems engineering, that's a service I need. I need internal communications. And then these are the percentages of time I need them. And these are the skills that I need. And as someone clicks into that, it can say, I want to apply. It opens up a box. You get to give your elevator pitch on yourself. And then, boom, your application goes in. And then it shows up in that laundry list of people that Greg would look up for his first release. On the map, It shows all the people that have been accepted to the project, where they are in the world, how many people have viewed this, so you get a sense of, God, I better apply for this. There's a lot of interest in this one. Oh yeah, so what's going to happen? Traditional management is who needs to manage out managers? They're not going to get people on their projects when they're not good managers.
I want this just for that.
Right. So what I saw when I envisioned this in my head before it became a reality was that we would be able to dump so much of the work that we do that's painful because it would become self-regulating. Performance management is such a heavy lift for us as HR people, but you don't need that when this becomes self-regulating. And actually, you see culture coming up. You see the best people getting into the right things. And you're leveraging that human-machine collaboration. The machine's smart. The machine will help you by taking that large funnel and bringing it down to 10 people that should be solving that problem. And then of the 10, you find the one a lot faster. That needle in the haystack problem is kind of gone. You can opt into that. We're not forcing anyone into the platform. No one will be forced into Follow Me. I might only turn on Follow Me when I'm traveling so that I can connect with people that they know that I'm in Berlin, right? That I'm not in Sunnyvale that day. But it's always opt-in. But remember what I said about generations. Our generation is very like, I need my privacy. I don't want anyone to know where I am. But it's not the generations that are coming. And they are collaborating on work, like schoolwork, from the get-go. In fact, my 16-year-old said, Mom, I got a B on this Algebra 2 exam. And I'm like, what? Well, you've had straight A's in algebra. What's with the B? Well, it was a group test. And I'm like, no group tests. No group test. It must be individual because you are an A student. And see, it's not that, it didn't even faze him. Don't worry, I'll get it. When I have an individual test, I'll get it back up again. But, sometimes it's luck of the draw, like who's in your group and, you got to try to bring everybody up. And so there's no lowest common denominator. It's really fascinating. They're so used to it. I wouldn't have been okay with that.